And greetings. Happy Wednesday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I'm Steve Deace. One more day here in Dallas before I head back home. Todd Erzin and Aaron McIntyre still there in Des Moines, still dodging the wasps as we speak. By the way, I look over on Keith Malinik's desk here inside Pat Gray's studio. I kid you not. He has a coffee cup on his desk, Keith does, USS Wasp. And I have no idea why Keith would put that there and have that. Keith, I have no idea why you'd put that there. Sorry, I got a bad itch here. And have that facing directly at where I'm sitting. But, yeah. Thank you or something for that. This portion of the show
checks in the mail,
brought to you by our friends at... Yeah,
big
nice
success.
Am I the only guy that pays a staff to troll me? Am I the only guy that does this? I have to be. Anyway,
Joe Biden, maybe.
We're brought to you by. Nice. Yes. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, see how that worked out. Brought to you by our friends over at Relief Factor. If you're struggling with chronic pain, it's probably because you have too much inflammation in the body, and Relief Factor wants to do something about that. It is a drug-free supplement created by doctors who can prescribe drugs, but they wanted to go after what was likely the cause of your chronic pain. That's too much inflammation in your joints. That's likely why you've got that achy, soreness, stiffness symptoms that you are constantly wrestling with. No guarantees here, but over the years, about 1 million people have tried the 3-week quick start from Relief Factor and saw such great results. In 3 weeks or less, they stuck with the product long term. So why don't you see if you don't see a difference in your pain level in 3 weeks or less? It's just $20. It's just $20 to find out when you go to relieffactor.com. Again, that is relieffactor.com. Also, we've got something really exciting to share here at The Blaze. We have a brand new subscription offering, and it's called Blaze Unlimited, and we're launching it with our brand new Frontier magazine that looks absolutely phenomenal. The first issue features work from Chris Rufo, Mark Levin, Glenn Beck, and more. We think you're going to absolutely love it. And Frontier is just the beginning as part of our new Blaze Unlimited membership. You'll get exclusive access to Frontier delivered right to your door, along with a whole lot more. This is about taking another step forward against state-run media and propaganda, as you saw on display with the questions asked in the VP debate last night, all from the biased premise of the opposition. These are the forces trying to tear down the foundations of the country. And as a founding member of Blaze Unlimited, you're going to receive a limited edition founding membership card, even more behind-the-scenes content, VIP event access, and more, including a chance to have your voice be heard. So this membership is about more than sitting on the sidelines. It's about actively joining with us here at The Blaze to preserve this last best hope for humanity this side of Eden and eternity. If you want to join Blaze Unlimited today, we're just getting started. Go to blazeunlimited.com/Deace to claim your spot. blazeunlimited.com/Deace to claim your spot. All right, coming up on today's show, next hour, we will get a full hour in of buy, sell, or hold. And in the overtime, I think we have to do this. I don't really want to do it. And I think America right now is like on an injury report day to day, okay? But we would be remiss if we did not, after most of America got a chance to see two potential future standard bearers for their parties for the first time on a stage last night, not discuss what this could mean going forward into future political cycles that at this point we'd be very fortunate to actually have. So we'll get into that for a few minutes today in the overtime at blazetv.com/Deace. At the bottom of this hour, I am going to make my very first primary endorsement for the 26 cycle. My very first one for the 26 cycle. And it is something that I think we should all do and all get on board with because it is a very important test case that could help to steer the future of the American right or determine whether we even have one. So I'll get into that at the bottom of the hour, but let us begin as we always do with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by a prodigious performance. Ohio Senator J.D. Vance debated Minnesota Governor Tim Walz last night on CBS News. The first topic discussed was Iran launching dozens, if not hundreds, of missiles at Israel yesterday.
But I think that's something that Governor Walz just said is quite extraordinary. You yourself just said Iran is as close to a nuclear weapon today as they have ever been. And Governor Walz, you blame Donald Trump, who has been the vice president for the last 3.5 years. And the answer is your running mate, not mine. When was the last time? I'm 40 years old. When was the last time that an American president didn't have a major conflict break out? The only answer is during the 4 years that Donald Trump was president.
In typical on-brand American political fashion, CBS News started with that question about an international tragedy, only to then pivot to a domestic tragedy, Hurricane Helene, and they framed that disaster as being the result of global warming. From there, the issue of immigration was brought up, and Vance landed another haymaker on the topic of deportation.
You ask about family separation. Right now in this country, Margaret, we have 320,000 children that the Department of Homeland Security has effectively lost. Some of them have been sex trafficked. Some of them hopefully are at homes with their families. Some of them have been used as drug trafficking mules. The real family separation policy in this country is unfortunately Kamala Harris's wide open southern border.
On the economy, Walz chastised Vance for not listening to the experts.
I've made a note of this. Economists can't be trusted. Science can't be trusted. National security folks can't be trusted. Look, if you're going to be president, you don't have all the answers. Donald Trump believes he does. My pro tip of the day is this. If you need heart surgery, listen to the people at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, not Donald Trump.
Governor, you say trust the experts. But those same experts for 40 years said that if we shipped our manufacturing base off to China, we'd get cheaper goods. They lied about that. They said if we shipped our industrial base off to other countries, to Mexico and elsewhere, it would make the middle class stronger. They were wrong about that. They were wrong about the idea that if we made America less self-reliant, less productive in our own nation, that it would somehow make us better off, and they were wrong about it. This has to stop, and we're not going to stop it by listening to experts. We're going to stop it by listening to common sense wisdom, which is what Donald Trump governed on. What Governor Walz just did is he said, first of all, Donald Trump has to listen to the experts. And then when he acknowledged that the experts screwed up, he said, well, Donald Trump didn't do nearly as good of a job as the statistics show that he did. So what Tim Walz is doing, and I honestly, Tim, I think you got a tough job here, because you've got to play whack-a-mole. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver rising take-home pay, which of course he did. You've got to pretend that Donald Trump didn't deliver lower inflation, which of course he did. And then you've simultaneously got to defend Kamala Harris's atrocious economic record, which has made gas, groceries, and housing unaffordable for American citizens.
Vance did get wishy-washy on the issue of baby killing, however.
In the state of Ohio, we had a referendum in 2023, and the people of Ohio voted overwhelmingly, by the way, against my position. And I think that what I learned from that, Nora, is that we've got to do a better job at winning back people's trust. So many young women would love to have families. So many young women also see an unplanned pregnancy as something that's going to destroy their livelihood, destroy their education, destroy their relationships. And we have got to earn people's trust back.
On the Second Amendment and how to curb school shootings, Walz shot himself in the foot.
In that office with those Sandy Hook parents, I've become friends with school shooters. In that office with those Sandy Hook parents, I've become friends with school shooters.
CBS actually pressed Walz on his claim he was in China during the Tiananmen Square massacre.
You were in Hong Kong during the deadly Tiananmen Square protests in the spring of 1989. But Minnesota Public Radio and other media outlets are reporting that you actually didn't travel to Asia until August of that year. Can you explain that discrepancy?
Yeah, well, and to the folks out there who didn't get at the top of this, look, I grew up in small rural Nebraska, town of 400, town that you rode your bike with your buddies till the streetlights come on, and I'm proud of that service.
Governor, just to follow up on that, the question was, can you explain the discrepancy?
All I said on this was I got there that summer and misspoke on this, so I will just, that's what I've said. So I was in Hong Kong and China during the democracy protests went in. And from that, I learned a lot of what needed to be in governance.
Vance landed one more punch when it came to the issue of housing costs.
Well, first of all, Tim just said something that I agree with. We don't want to blame immigrants for higher housing prices, but we do want to blame Kamala Harris for letting in millions of illegal aliens into this country, which does drive up costs, Tim.
That's just scratching the surface of how last night's vice presidential debate went between Tim Walz and J.D. Vance. But that's what happened while we were away.
Last night was like watching Hillsdale College debate MSNBC, like even the best MSNBC has to offer. And I'll get more into that in a minute. But I mean, that's what you saw J.D. Vance do last night is kind of an embodiment of Hillsdale College's mission to prepare people and to prepare the American people to go into America and make sure we still have a place called that here in a few months or years. Because I don't know if you guys realize this, we're up against people that don't want it to be America anymore. That's why Hillsdale even does what we would consider simple things, like handing out free pocket constitutions to over 1 million Americans who don't have one. Because they're not teaching the Constitution in our schools. They're not even teaching it, folks, in the law schools, actually, except at places like Hillsdale College, by the way. So to have a free copy of the Pocket Constitution mailed to you, visit daceforhillsdale.com right now. Complete a simple form. They'll put it in the mail to you then with free shipping. daceforhillsdale.com, F-O-R. daceforhillsdale.com. Again, this offer expires soon, so claim your free Pocket Constitution today at daceforhillsdale.com. There is a lot I could say about last night and what transpired. I want to reset that we all agreed yesterday at this time, given how close this election is on multiple fronts. I think that Stu said to me yesterday when I was on his show, he went through the polling averages over at Decision Desk headquarters, and DDHQ had all 7 battleground states by 2 points or less. And only two of the 7 battleground states were more than 1 point of separation in polling averages. That's just crazy. Never seen anything like that, ever. At least not at this late a juncture. So we thought, given how unpredictable this cycle has been and how razor close this thing is right now, that it is possible for the first time a VP debate could make a difference in the outcome. Move maybe a half a point or a full point one way or the other among normie voters. And if you watched our pre-show here on The Blaze, Matthew Peterson and I kind of teamed up at the end on the approach that we would take if we were advising JD. And then, and I even elaborated further on how I'd even do it from the very first question and turn the first question into this kind of messaging. They're going to anticipate JD, the pugilist, is going to show up. Hillbilly Elegy JD needs to show up, actually. And he needs to argue from the inside out. He needs to establish his credibility as a person first. And understand and let people understand that he resonates, everyday people, he resonates with them. And then argue policies from there. Similar to what you've seen me do on the life issue, where I argue my family's testimony first, and then we get into the principles and particulars of the issue. Establish credibility with the audience first. We are in a different era of Americana than we used to be, in case you hadn't noticed. It used to be you started with your truth premise, and then you closed with the testimony. You can't do that anymore. We're worked over. There's not a lot of critical thinking Americans. You have to gain their credibility trust first before you have to make that connection first before they'll even consider that you have anything to offer in the form of truth. So you start now you start with testimony, and I would say this to all of you, okay? You want to persuade people in your family, in your peer group, etc. You want to run for office yourself, start with your story first and then go into the issues next. And Vance did that from the jump. I think it is possible, hopefully, that Vance may have won Trump the election with that showing last night. I don't know yet how many people watched, and we'll probably never know until Election Day which people among that how many watched. I came away thinking that after that presentation last night that he provided, if that doesn't close the sale, then I kind of think there was nothing we could do with Donald Trump as the face of our side this cycle to win. That's how effective I thought he was. I mean, J.D. Vance earned my man status from me last night. And I want to point to some data as to why. You guys know right now, I think one of the best pollsters out there is Emerson College. Emerson came out with their latest Pennsylvania poll just a couple of hours before the debate. And Pennsylvania is probably the state that's going to decide this thing. Not definitively, but probably. And what it showed is that when Pennsylvania voters were asked by Emerson, one of the best pollsters we have right now, pardon me, who's better on the issues, and in this case, specifically, the economy and their family's economy. So the macro economy and the micro economy. And the economy is always the number one issue in every exit poll for every election ever. Okay? When Pennsylvanians were asked which candidate is better on those kitchen table issues that usually decide things, Trump was +7, 51-44. In that exact same sample, when asked, who are you going to vote for? It was 48-48, a tie, and the rest undecided. In other words, one of the best current pollsters going confirmed, really just quantified for us right there, that even when the country is on the brink, as many of us think it is now, the normie voter still needs to feel like they like you. The normies are still so comfortable that they will put their self-interest aside and refuse you if they're not comfortable with you. Which means we're not yet at the issue breaking point needed to get them to overcome the need for connection.
Heck, we see some of that in our own audience, Steve.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I shudder to want to know what that breaking point is. I'm praying we do not find out. But clearly, this Pennsylvania poll from Emerson clearly shows we're not at that point. That you could be +7 on the number one issue and tied with your opponent. That's all personality. That's all that is. And that's why what I'm about to say next is very important. What Vance provided in this debate last night was the most articulate, mature, sober, relational, apologetic for Trump's political brand I'm guessing the normie American has probably ever seen. Not to mention, for me personally, I thought it was the most presidential presentation by a GOP standard bearer in a general election I have ever seen, as long as I've been eligible to vote, which goes back to 1992. I thought for the most part he was in complete command of the event, and not in a domineering way, in a meek way. There was power under control, and he shared this about an hour ago on X, the prayer his priest sent him. Because he said, he told his priest on a scale of 1 to 10 for nerves, I'm at an 11 right now. So his priest sent him this prayer, and looking at the prayer, I can see why you got a chance to see what real meekness, power under control looks like. Could Vance have gone harder on some issues that we know he likely has a harder edge on, like life and guns, without question? Let Walz off the hook on a few of those, frankly. But I understand why. Number one, he was being asked to argue subtleties. Frankly, he doesn't share. He's demonstrated he's not very subtle on those kinds of issues. But he's not the candidate. He's arguing a game. He agreed to join a team, and he has a game plan to execute. And that game plan was, see if you can finally, after a decade of Trump branding, make Trump's brand feel like it's non-threatening to people. And he did that. If the people that want harder edges on those issues are probably, many of them already mobilized to vote anyway. What we've lost the last few elections, as I keep pointing out, are independents/normie voters. They're not all the same, by the way, but there's a lot of overlap there. And like it or not, these people keep proving to us they are not ready for the rendezvous with destiny, time for choosing a trial that America truly needs. They're not ready for that. These people are still too comfortable for that. They're still too uncomfortable with Trump's persona, despite acknowledging he's superior to Kamala on the issues that actually matter most. What they need to see, here's what they need to see. They need to see that Trump's disruption is vital to maintaining the normalcy we have. And this is a case that Trump himself has struggled to make way too often, which feeds our opponent's narrative that Trump is an unstable element that only exists in a threatening way. Vance finally provided, I think, that missing link in that debate last night. I pray there were the kinds of voters we need that were watching it. I thought for the first time in its brief but epic history, the Trump brand was objectively the more optimistic, the more stable, the more aspirational, the more reasonable. We've never said that. Even when we thought that Trump and his brand are doing well, we've never attributed those traits to it. In this debate, Vance used those attributes. Trump talked about building walls, a wall, by the way, we need to build. What Vance built was a bridge. Vance took those attributes I just mentioned, optimism, stability, aspirational, reasonable. He took those attributes and used them to build a bridge in real time to establish a reason why independents and normies, turned off by Trump's persona, can now vote for his policies, assuage their concerns. This was different than what Reagan did for Barry Goldwater, and one of the famous lines that Reagan said for Goldwater at the time, "In your heart, you know he's right." We were different people back then than we are now. And there needs to be that relational connection in ways that we didn't have to have back then. But even back then, Barry Goldwater got absolutely crushed, guys. Vance made Trump's candidacy to the voters, the crucial voters, the sliver of voters we need the most. He made Trump's candidacy more accessible to them than it was 24 hours ago. Well, until election night, or festival, we're not going to know how accessible, but it's inarguable. It's more accessible this morning than it was at this time when we went on the air this time yesterday. Now, historically, VP debates do not matter at all. But historically, guys, we also haven't had opposing forces openly trying to imprison and assassinate their campaign rivals either. So I'm not entirely sure how much historic precedent matters at this moment. We're making history, in fact, in real time right now. But for one night, at the very least, J.D. Vance seized the moment. I thought he gave the few undecided voters remaining something new to consider. That there's more to Trump than they think, or they've been led to believe, or frankly, that he has gone out of his way to confirm for you. And keep this in mind, since the dawn of the television era, every single election has been won by the side that best messaged the future. And last night, that was clearly the Trump side, with J.D. Vance doing the messaging. So those are my thoughts. Todd and Aaron, I turn it over now to you guys.
I think you're right about the importance of Vance's authentic personality coming through. And I retweeted that prayer of his and said, one of the great things about him is it does seem like he's doing this and, sharing his fear like he did. There's not a sense of arrogance that's so common in the political community. Who can I be? There's a real sense of duty and honor, faith and hope to him. If that comes across and accomplishes everything you're talking about, amen, Steve. I think there's no doubt he won. I'm not as bullish on the whole thing. I give him a solid B. Good work. I think he accepted the premise of too many questions, which is not to say he has to go all crazy boilerplate exactly like we would on this show, but when knowing exactly what Walz is and how he glitched out on one question from two favorable moderators, you had to have in your arsenal the kinds of topics that you would go to and pivot to that could make him glitch like that. Steve, you made a great point about how, he's the VP. He's carrying water for Trump. He can't get out in front of him on certain issues, so you're not going to get exactly the life issue. That was perfect analysis. But as soon as that conversation starts to pivot into mind your own business, choice about women, instantly, right now in the news, you have the volleyball team at San Jose State, where teams are boycotting playing against them. You now have a high school soccer team. Girls are boycotting them. Say, really? Do you really want to talk about choice? Because when it comes to choice in women, you seem to be vehemently against their choice to play in a safe environment. And the fact that wasn't brought up at all, I have a problem. I think you can walk and chew bubblegum at the same time, and they seem to consciously have made a very, very clear choice. Again, just like with the second question, you want his personality to come out? I mean, that's his people over there in North Carolina. That is hillbilly elegy people. And I thought he got a little too wonky in his answer in talking about how you handle that. I would say, climate change? Really? This is what we're going to do? Joe Biden doesn't seem to care so much about climate change right now, sunning on the beach while this is happening. People are drowning. I just think God bless him. He won it. I'm a huge fan overall. I'm just not as bullish on the whole thing. I think he was a little too safe, and it doesn't mean he had to do things exactly the way we would. But there were some clear opportunities where he could have put Waltz in a corner and made him dance.
So I think by and large, and a B coming from Todd is pretty high praise, I would say, not to put words in your mouth, but I would say just kind of surveying things on the right, I think it's pretty clear that the right was pretty impressed with J.D. Vance last night. The people who were less impressed seem to be looking at this from a meta level, an overall arc of this party, of Donald Trump, of where we are as a people. The people who were most impressed, and I would put myself in the latter category, seem to be looking at this and analyzing this as we have to win this election or else the meta view really doesn't matter. And in terms of I analyzed it on the micro. What are you coming in here to accomplish? Establishing yourself as a credible individual and then essentially hanging all of the Biden-Harris failures around Harris and making Walz defend that. And I thought he did that effectively over and over and over again last night. Todd is absolutely right. The meta premise, taking people's suffering and blaming that on global warming so we can talk about junk science, that's dastardly. That's journalism is magical and not at all broken. And yeah, J.D. Vance maybe missed an opportunity there at a meta level to reframe that. But at the micro level, he just said, basically, let's just pretend that's true for once. And, if you really believe that, these are the policies you would be pursuing, and they're not, basically saying you're hypocrites. So at the micro level, I don't think, other than the abortion, baby killing stuff, that was the most tepid answer. I was pretty disappointed on that. It is important. But in terms of the nuts and bolts of the rest of the debate, he didn't really look at it this way. If you're in the Walz camp, if you're on the Democrat side, you let J.D. Vance get off the hook with everything, like everything. That's how you're looking at it if you're on their side.
That's a great point.
That's not to say that on our side there wasn't meat left on the bone, because there certainly was, and I would grade his performance as an A or A-. But in terms of the overall debate performance, in terms of what you're trying to accomplish in the micro with this election, I thought it was incredibly effective. And I thought, again, in the micro, this was on many occasions rules for patriots on full display.
Well, thank you. That's a nice compliment. I appreciate that. But I love what you just said there, that Walz walked away scoring, really leaving, J.D. Vance completely intact. I thought he executed their talking points fine. I didn't think Walz was bad at all. I mean, that China answer, one of the more painful moments that you'll see in a debate. But on several of these issues, I thought he messaged their demonic agenda in a pretty non-threatening way himself. I kind of thought that Walz was, a guy that can spend, 15 years in the major leagues as a quality first baseman, like a Mark Grace or a Bill Buckner. And I thought what Vance was, the problem was he's up against a guy that has Stan Musial, Lou Gehrig level first base talent. Just completely outclassed. And you know it's a good night when your side thinks you could have done even better and their side walks away with nothing on you at all. That's when you know
that's true.
You had a good night. More in a moment. So we spent a lot of time yesterday talking about the potential longshoreman dock worker strike. That's in the news again right now. In fact, here in Pat's studio, the monitor on Fox News, that's the story they're talking about. That's another one of those, that could never happen here. That could happen here. Make sure you're ready with our friends at My Patriot Supply. They've got everything your family needs during a crisis, like the 4-week emergency food kit, over 2,000 plus calories per day. There's enough food to go around, times of social unrest, government crackdowns, longshoremen strikes. Food lasts up to 25 years as well. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, even drinks and snacks. You can get $50 off that kit right now and free shipping. All right. And free shipping and $50 off that kit right now. When you go to preparewithdace.com, just make sure you're ready. You're prepped. You've got that peace of mind. Preparewithdace.com. Again, head over to preparewithdace.com. All right. I want to take a time out here and talk about something that right now is obscure, but I think moving forward for the future of the right here in America is fundamentally important. There is some speculation. There's been speculation for a while now, but for the first time, at least that I'm aware of, Vivek Ramaswamy has fed into the speculation about him running for governor of Ohio in 2026. And I want to right now go on the record with my very first primary cycle endorsement for the 26 election cycle. I am full throat, wholehearted, all in, endorsing Vivek Ramaswamy to run for governor of Ohio and be the GOP nominee and hopefully win that office. And I think all of the right, in fact, should unite behind his candidacy. And here is why. We're seeing a changing of the guard now. That generational changeover that our show in particular has been extremely frustrated by, it's, shall we call it, slow pace. It's happening now. You saw some of that last night. It is very clear J.D. Vance is the heir to the MAGA throne. What will be unclear, depending on the result of this election, then if Trump wins, how he governs, etc. What will be unclear is how potent of a kingdom MAGA will be after Trump is gone. But it is now clear who the heir apparent for that kingdom is. Now, that's not the only kingdom in the Republican Party. It is the dominant one right now. But, the only permanent kingdom is Jesus's. Okay, so it's the dominant one right now for sure. You'd rather be the heir to that kingdom than any other kingdom on the right now, for sure. But it is not the only kingdom on the right. And there will be governors that have substantial resources and records, like Ron DeSantis, like Glenn Youngkin, and we'll get into this in the overtime, that, they're going to challenge for that throne in a future cycle. I'm not so much concerned about that, because a lot of those are things, frankly, beyond our ability, most of our abilities to impact. If we have another Iowa caucus cycle, maybe I'll still have some influence, but the last one proved I really don't have that much influence anymore. So it may be that no one wants my influence this time, and that won't break my heart. All right? And I'll just keep doing the show, and I'm good where I'm at. Okay? But something that I do think we can all influence is the debate. While those in public office or seeking office are going to be contesting Game of Thrones up here, down here, another debate is taking place already. And I think it's largely a false choice. And that debate is that we're either grifters or we're substantive. And that debate is that we're only quip and quote machines and engagement farming on social media, or we're governing. And I think, frankly, the stereotypes both sides have of each other have some inaccuracies. Let me start with the side that I was aligned with in this last primary, with DeSantis. I'll start with my own, the side that I would normally be the most aligned with. Because we do have to govern. There's no point in acquiring power if we're not going to wield it in powerful ways. But we are moving into an era. It is quite possible. I hope, in fact, I'm hoping that it's true. Based on how out-organized I think we're going to be on the ground, I'm hoping that we're at this point right now. But if we're not at this point right now, we are going to be there very soon. And that is, in the current media age, and we saw this in the Iowa caucus, for example, Air Forces matter more than Marines. Air Forces matter more than boots on the ground. Most of us are living by this right now. This is our Starfleet communicator. We have this with us wherever we go. And most of us, our lives are in here. They're largely contained in here. Every key relationship we have, logged in here. Every vital professional communication we've engaged in, or most of them, logged in here. Directions of where we're going, logged in here. How we stay informed, logged in here. How we purchase most of the stuff we buy, from here. And for those of you that are listening, I'm holding up my phone. This is the world now. It's not snail mail. It's not knowing the names of your neighbors. It's knowing the avatars of people in other states that you'll never meet. We can complain about it, say it's worse, doesn't matter. It is what it is. In some respects, it's probably better. In some respects, it's probably worse. But in many respects, complaining about it is like when the agrarians at the end of the 19th century complained about people moving into the cities for the industrial age in the 20th century. It's just going to happen. It's unavoidable. Societal, small e evolution, this is where we are. And so chances are you know more about someone who you've never personally met, but you've interacted with because of common virtues and values and ambitions on social media, then you know someone that lives 4 doors down from you. That's just the world we live in now. And if it's not going to be this election, maybe as soon as the very next one. Who dominates at the Air Force level, at the messaging level, is going to dictate who has power. Not who can produce the best resume, not who can produce the best record. That's just the reality of how society functions. It's how we communicate. It's where we are. You can complain. You can lament. It's irrelevant. Because you have no power. If you're doing that, you can't change it. It's where this is where humans have migrated to. And so this idea that Ron DeSantis' fantastic record in Florida is just going to be organically known without killer memes and engagement farming and influencers, it's impossible. It's not what the human habitat of today is. It doesn't matter how good your record is. If you can't connect with people where they are, they're never going to find out. They're never going to feel it. That's just the reality. And so the country of substance that you're trying to win over on the DeSantis side of this debate does not exist. It does not exist. You're making strategic arguments about eras that are long gone and probably never coming back. So you're going to have to figure out how to get some of that slick Vivek on you. Otherwise, you're just going to be a really nice governor. Now, on the other side, this idea that that all that matters is this. Policy positions largely don't matter. People that have done nothing of substance in the political realm can suddenly adopt a slate of talking points and positions and own them in how they communicate them and get a level of street cred instantly that we used to demand people actually earn with their accomplishments. That's not going to work either. Because what happens when the dog catches the car? What happens when you guys are really good at this and it works? And now you've got to govern. And now there's a crisis, and we can't just and as Trump learned in 2020, guess what? You cannot trust the perpetual governing apparatus of the state. You can't just trust Debbie Birx and Anthony Fauci have got this for you and the best interest of the American people in mind. You can't do that. Can you actually run a country the way a Ron DeSantis has actually run a state? That ultimately, you guys are right. Being excellent in this arena is mandatory in order to acquire power. But what happens once that power has been acquired? What are you going to do with it? And these two sides here, and I'll say, that are symbolized by Vivek, who is a master messenger, by the way, master. Always on message. I cannot think of a time he has been put back on his heels. And there is absolute value in that. I'm a professional messenger for a living. Do not think I don't think there's value in that. I think there's tremendous value in it. But one side says, I don't want to get my hands dirty. I don't want to, that's too slick. No one's that smart. No one's that good. Keep it real. Keep it real all you want and get 15 to 20% in every GOP primary. So, cool. On the other hand, this idea that plans are for cucks, governing's for losers, and we're just going to keep exposing and disrupting and exposing and disrupting and disrupting and exposing. Well, to what end? Power acquired. What will we now do? What will we now do? Iran is not going to say, you know what? Let's let the meme guys catch up before we invade Israel. Screw that. Bibi Netanyahu's not going to wait. Well, let me make sure the U.S. has their engagement farming down before I knock Tehran back into the Stone Age. That's not how this works. And these two sides have to understand that they are not in opposition to each other, but one is the means to the end of the other, and also the end of the means to the other side as well. They actually have to work together. This is the future era where ideas will be formed. Your phone is the city gate now. This is the mouth of the American information river right here. This phone is as the Nile was to the Egyptians. This is it, the source of all life in the natural. If you cannot win here, you will not acquire power. And then it doesn't matter for the DeSantis stands. It does not matter how competent you are, how excellent you are. You don't have any power. It doesn't matter. So learn how to get slicker. Learn how to meme. Learn how to brand. You're the guy she wants to marry, but she'll never find out if you can't get her to accept your offer to go out on a date. To the Vivek group over here, though, this is the source, yes. But it is not the alpha and the omega. We have to be able to govern. We have to take our killer memes and our killer messaging and take those massive engagement farms and mobilize them for civic duty, to run for school boards, do more than just click on our stuff. What is the power of acquiring this? What's the point of acquiring this power if you know not how to wield it? And I think for Vivek is the perfect test case to bridge these things. Let's see what the engagement machine and the soundbite machine and the talking point machine, because he is a machine. To his credit, let's see that he can govern. And let's see what happens when he's put in positions where the decisions are not always as cut and dried as the killer meme. And sometimes you got to eat, sometimes in leadership, and frankly, all too often in a fallen culture like today, you're going to have to eat the poop sandwich. So whose poop do you want on the sandwich, and what kind of poop do you like? There's just no really good options here. But you got the job and you got to make the call. And I think this could go a long way into, because long after names like DeSantis and Vivek are gone, or anybody remembers, how we handle this operational debate on the right will go a long way to determining whether there will continue to be an American right after Trump's era ends, however soon or late that is. Do you guys have a quick thought on this and why I'm endorsing Vivek before we get out?
I had no idea where you were going to go with that segment, and I'd co-sign that. Maybe more than anybody else on this show, I have been more critical of Vivek Ramaswamy because at a visceral level, I've also been very consistent that, I've said he is not only a gifted communicator, but a polished one at that. I also saw his family up close and personal. That's a mark of some degree of character. That's a mark of some degree of substance. And it's because of those two things that I want him to use his powers for good. And I really don't think that he did that during the primary. I think the analysis that we had, that he figured out that by and large, the right-wing ecosphere really is not into substance and into governing and into competence, but rather clickbaits and clicks and pithy sound bites. I want to see him use that power for good. So yeah, run for governor in 2026. Prove people like Aaron McIntyre absolutely wrong. Put us to shame. I want to see that. So yeah, I'm enthusiastically on board if this is something that he's seriously considering.
I would just add there are two sides to this coin. The much harder one to nail, largely because of it's just such a character issue, as DeSantis is displaying, is the governing part. You can get people to help you message better if you want to. The governing, though, that's the trick.
We'll come back. Let's play Buy, Sell, or Hold. When we do, stay tuned. All right, we're back here with Hour 2 live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here, one more day in Dallas. Aaron McIntyre and Todd Erzin still back there in Des Moines. You can let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. Steve@stevedeace.com is the email address. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, me, we, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on X, Getter, Instagram, TikTok as well. Don't forget, too, that we have a brand new YouTube page as well, as we're trying to start all over there after so much censorship we've dealt with there the last few years. So get our brand new YouTube page at Deace Show, DEACE, at Deace Show on YouTube. Please go there and subscribe now. If you listen to the podcast version of the show, you can subscribe by hitting subscribe, or on iTunes, follow, and that'll make sure that every time we do a new episode, it shows up in your feed every single time. Furthermore, you can leave us a 5-star review, and we appreciate each and every one of those, and appreciate all of you who have left us one of those before. So thank you very much. And we appreciate our friends over at America's Christian Credit Union. For over a generation, they have been serving God-fearing Americans with integrity and faith. Pardon me. You can switch to America's Christian Credit Union for great rates, cutting-edge mobile banking, and access to well over 5,000 shared branches and over 30 1,000 ATMs nationwide. So yes, switching banks can be a hassle, but the days of the community bank upholding the values of the community are unfortunately mostly gone. And a lot of these banks nowadays are massive conglomerates, global entities. And in many cases, they're the ones helping to write the checks for the rot gut you see every single June, for example. All right. So if you want to make the switch today, our listeners get an additional $100 bonus with the promo code Steve at checkout. And for a limited time, you can earn $400 when you open a new checking account with qualifying activities. All right. So to take advantage of all this stuff, all right, go to America's Christian CU for credit union. americaschristiancu.com/Steve. That's americaschristiancu.com/Steve. Terms and restrictions apply. America's Christian Credit Union is federally insured by the National Credit Union Administration. All right, let's get to some buy, sell, or hold. And here's how this works. You guys make the submissions to Aaron. He selects them. Todd and I will then determine whether we're going to buy it, whether we're going to sell it, have maybe a reason or 7 why. If at any point in time we say hold, then we are more emasculated than Tim Walz. Did you guys see MSNBC accuse J.D. Vance of mansplaining to Tim Walz?
Of course.
I got to tell you, I'm pretty confident that Tim Walz can be mansplained to, if you know what I'm saying. Pretty confident that that's the key, or that's the case. All right, so if you use the hold, you are as emasculated as Tim Walz. If that's you, you therefore should be dutifully punished. And your punishment this week is you have to go to Lindsey Graham and learn which nation is he the most aroused by starting World War III with. That is your punishment. Todd, your thoughts?
I think that already happened to us once, didn't it?
Did it?
Remember when...
Is that your way of saying I'm running out of Lindsey Graham fetishes?
I remember in Iowa, pre-Trump, when he came to Ames to speak at that event, and it didn't matter which question he was asked, he basically said a version of go to war with somebody. So I think we've done this pretty much.
Oh, Lindsey Graham. That's
Yes.
right. I forgot about that. Yes. And then Dana Bash asked him about me calling the first trans Republican. I remember that. Good times. All right, let's get to it, Aaron.
We will begin with uncontexted Deace 2 Electric Boogaloo. Tim Walz had so many ties to the Chinese Communist Party that Eric Swalwell wants to sleep with him. And there's a meme.
I like it.
Tough but fair. Bye.
With the guy turning away from his girl, looking at the other girl walking down the street. And they're all replaced with the relevant figures' faces. Moving on, Caleb Hammer says UNLV will now become Todd's preferred team because they don't pay up on their NIL promises.
Did you guys see what they did after they lost that quarterback?
Just routed Fresno State.
Just absolutely went out there. They were a 1-point favorite. I think they won by like 40, right? Okay. And the whole team, by the way, basically just hated the guy for what he did. So I could see this becoming Todd's new favorite team. You bet.
No, I don't have a favorite.
And how about the fact? How about the fact that a team from that's where we are. A team from Las Vegas now.
Yeah.
Is the team of those with the moral high ground. That's where we are now. Yes.
Yeah, I already pointed that out. Trust me. And this is it's increasingly just becoming a character flaw to have a favorite college football team. I mean, this thing is an absolute farce.
Next.
Go blue, by the way. Go blue.
Go Hawks. Yes. Alex Pfeiffer says cats are communists, not only because of what they are always saying, Mao, but how they always act. Nothing is good enough for them. They are extremely selfish. They want handouts. They can't do anything for themselves except eat and poop, and they always want to destroy things and ruin it for everyone. Cats are communists. Buy, sell, or hold.
I think I'm a buy on this. Even before I found out I was quasi-allergic to them, meaning they kick my allergies in, but I'm not like deathly allergic to it, you know? But I was just never a cat person. I just never understood the whole thing. What do they do? Other than what Alex lays out. I've just never been a cat person. I've never gotten the whole thing with cats.
Well, on the farm, they do serve purpose of eating mice, but that's not how most domesticated cats, I would wager.
Correct.
Are treated.
Yeah, I was going to say.
So I'm a buy.
Domesticated cats, but they're just too comfortable, quite frankly.
There it is. Yes.
I don't think they're communists. I think they're Americans. Look at them just walk around. Somebody else is going to do it for me. Connor Stallions is a folk hero. That's what cats probably think.
He is a folk hero. I can't even go outside. Just put a box over there in another room. Okay? Yeah. I mean, I don't get the cat thing at all. I mean, I don't. Yeah, do cats run to the door when you get home?
No.
Do they do that? I don't know.
They're too comfortable. There's no gratitude. They don't put the work in.
I remember
they're ingrates.
I remember when Cap. Exactly. I remember when Cap was young and healthy. When I pulled into the garage, man, it was a race to the door between Cap and the kids. All right. Like I was a conquering hero to both the dog and the kids unless they were in trouble, okay, which did happen. But every other day, I was a conquering hero when I came home. A cat doesn't greet you like that. He looks at you like, where you been? You know, change my litter box. You know what? The more I think about it, Alex, this is one of the best takes we've had in recent memory. You're right on the money with this. Buy. All the buys. All the buys.
Next up, Micah Toole says the October surprise may be boots on the ground in Israel. That would divide Trump's base exponentially more than boots on the ground in Ukraine would.
I'm going to sell on this, and here's why. The anti-Semitic wing of the Democratic Party, which is essentially now the Democratic Party, no way. No way. No way they're putting boots on the ground to aid Israel. No way. I mean, look at the amount of pandering that has been done to the voting bloc of Dearborn, Michigan, the largest Islamic enclave per capita in America by the Democratic Party, ever since that Michigan primary this winter when a bunch of them voted no preference in the primary. The acceleration of anti-Israel sentiment from not just their blogosphere or thinkers, but into their policy positions and messaging, the acceleration of that since that Michigan primary result on the Democratic side has accelerated exponentially. There's no way they're putting boots on the ground in Israel or to defend Israel. No way.
Agree.
Nope, sell.
Ukraine, if it's going to be boots on the ground, Ukraine more likely.
It will be Ukraine.
Because you have to
agree.
remember, also, you just have to remember, if you put boots on the ground, this as an October surprise, there's the other matter of letting, if you're not serious about it, if this is an October surprise, and implied in that is that the election's in November, then what do you do after November? Are you there? Do you just pull out? How do you explain that? And I know we have a press corps that's fawning, but at some point, where do the people say, really? This was just for an election? So this is not, putting boots on the ground anywhere is not just any old October surprise.
All right, next up we go to Timothy Stevens. The First Amendment and Second Amendment are two sides of the same coin. First Amendment defends our liberties metaphysically, Second Amendment physically. Censorship removes our only means of nonviolent resistance, presumably in order to incite a response that would be the pretext for disarmament, mass arrests, and bloody oppression.
Bye.
And sorry, Alex, that take might be even better. I mean, that's...
It's not a cat take, but it's pretty darn good.
Yep. But I mean, that's why they're 1 and 2. Is everything that you just said there. I mean, that's an American homiletic right there. That's perfectly orchestrated and articulated. Again, all the buys. Well done.
Next, Ari Lee Mueller says men who drink pumpkin spice lattes have violated the dude code and make Lindsey Graham dream about you.
That's a buy.
I got to sell. Now, I'm not a latte person in general, way too much caffeine for me, but it sounds like something I would like. And I don't like Lindsey Graham. So I'm going to sell. In fact, I'm comfortable enough in my masculinity, I might just go out. You guys need to know, when I got here yesterday, first text I got was from Jill Savage, and she texted me and said, hey, I'm making a Starbucks run. You want anything pumpkin while I'm there?
You're having girly conversations about coffee. I mean, the dude code is hanging on by a very thin thread.
Or I'm getting a text from Jill Savage. I think there's a lot of single men in this audience that would love for Jill Savage to be sending them texts and saying, do you need anything from Starbucks? Okay. But there's different ways to look at it. But you guys would be proud of me. I said no. because I don't drink coffee in general.
When
but
was
I
the
did
last time
appreciate
you
the
had
offer.
coffee?
Oh man, do you count chocolate covered coffee beans?
No.
No.
I regret
I just
asking
wanted
that
to see that
question.
disappointed look on.
so many regrets right now. I failed.
Anyway, let me tell you about that time.
Chocolate covered coffee beans are a folk hero.
Did you guys hear about that time I was in Tiananmen Square? Oh, I did that just to troll Todd. Although I will say chocolate covered coffee beans are excellent. But I can't remember the last time Aaron and I had coffee. I can't.
It's incredible. I can't imagine.
But here's the thing for me. I love the smell of it, but I would need it so packed with cream and sugar. At that point, I might as well just have a milkshake.
That's not I think, is there enough self-awareness there that you're pretty twitchy enough as it is? You do not need caffeine.
That's true. Could you guys see me on
no,
what's
don't do it.
Starbucks biggest is called a grande. Is that their big one? Right?
I think maybe venti. I don't know.
Okay.
Just use English for crying out loud. Starbucks, not you.
Could you see
Starbucks.
me on could you see me on like a Slurpee sized cup of coffee before I did the show? I'm just out here. People think I'm on
You're
meth.
already
I'm just
there,
tweaking.
man.
I'm
You're
literally
already
just tweaking.
there.
Yes, I know. I hear you.
We might be having a died suddenly article on Steve Deace.
By the way, Karen Del Marmol just sent this note to me on X. My cat, and she puts in all caps, always comes to the door with me when I leave and is there to greet me. So Karen wants you to know that her cat is there for her. Thank you, Karen.
All right, John says Trump camp gets a huge bump from the incompetence shown by this administration over Helene and the longshoremen strike.
So, there will be no huge bumps.
Too early to tell on this yet.
There will.
And the strike has not happened yet. So I do think if it happens, they'll get an initial bump. But the longer it goes, I think the more problematic it is for everybody.
Steve,
but for now, I will sell.
You answered this question with your analysis earlier on the show, and you mentioned it yesterday too about that poll. The facts don't matter. The evidence doesn't matter. The issues don't matter. They know they're either better for Trump or that whatever those other people on their side doing is shameless. But they can't get over Trump. There's no huge bumps coming. None. On any issue. Don't expect it. Doesn't mean he can't win. I hope he wins. No huge bumps are coming, folks.
All right, moving on. Happy Dad says the only obstacle standing in between Trump and a red wave is his attacks on conservatives and his stance on abortion.
So, again, same.
Sell.
This is not the lay of the land, folks.
Yeah, I sell.
I mean, Happy Dad, he's a name I remember, I recognize from the Twitter religious wars lately, and that are combined with the Trump wars. That's just not reality. Don't vote for him. Whatever your principles, fine, but you're not dealing with reality right there.
Yeah. So I think the only thing that's standing in between Donald Trump and a red wave is basically every institution and headwind of import in this country. That's that. Other than that,
yeah. Other than that, that's a great way of putting it. I would also say that I do agree that Trump has unnecessarily attempted to diminish some of his own base support by taking them for granted. And this is what Pastor Jack Hibbs, my man out there in Chino Hills, just preached to his congregation about this last weekend in a overall fantastic sermon that every American believer should go listen to, by the way. That being said, though, the amount of people who's the person that sent the note, Aaron?
Happy Dad.
Okay, the amount of people that Happy Dad represents, it's not insignificant, but it's insignificant in comparison to the amount of normies that Trump's personality or their perceptions of his personality has turned off. Okay? So I don't fault the Trump campaign at all for being sensitive to that. Where I disagree with them tactically is that they think it's his hard edge on the issues that have produced this this unease that normies have with him, when I would argue it's his personality. And it's actually the opposite. It's his positions, it's his hard edges on these issues that are actually his most endearing quality. And that's why I think what JD did last night is so important, okay? That he put a different face, a more relatable face on Trump's agenda. He put a more engaging, reasonable, mature, and sober face on Trump's agenda and Trump's brand. Because I don't believe, Trump was running a way more based messaging campaign in 2016 than he is now, and he won. Okay? I don't believe it's his positions on the issues that are the limiting principle with Donald Trump. I think that's actually his best quality. It's his personality, that is. And there's way more people turned off by his personality than there are people on our side who are turned off by him softening his positions on issues.
And on this one particular issue, and God, no one can, look at Steve's own personal testimony on this one issue, abortion. But Steve isn't good. Yes, the entire Republican Party, it was just waiting around for this one man. And now if he would just go full Moses and say, let my people go, really? That's the Republican Party you're familiar with? If Donald Trump would just say it, you really think a red wave is going to happen? This entire Republican Party for my entire adult life has been making sure a red wave on this issue isn't going to happen. Trump is not the only one holding this back. That's just foolhardy. You can disagree with his messaging on this, if it's half-hearted, if it's real, all things. But the fact that he's holding it back? No way. Come on.
Correct. I don't know what Republican Party this is. Some of you act like this is your very first primary cycle. I have fought for 18 years. I mean, Mitt Romney funded taxpayer-funded abortions with Romney Care before Barack Obama even contemplated it. Mitt Romney was getting sued for violating religious conscience over gay adoptions and taxpayer-funded abortion long before Hobby Lobby sued the Obama administration. George W. Bush gave us this great pro-life apologetic and then went out and did virtually nothing for it. He ultimately did appoint a couple of the justices that later on, with Trump's additions, did overturn Roe. But through the 8 years of his presidency, they did nothing other than a partial birth abortion ban that didn't actually stop any partial birth abortions, just a certain method of it, but didn't even ban the practice. And not to mention, where's George W. Bush been on any meaningful pro-life fight since he left the White House? Nowhere.
This is why
you haven't seen him anywhere.
This is why Steve is winking and nodding at you every day on the back of his computer. The pro-life hero, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This issue was hanging on by such a thread that she ultimately, basically, through her hubris, is why Roe v. Wade was ultimately overturned. Not because of grand Republican rhetoric and heroes everywhere. Come on.
Yeah, I don't. Sometimes I wonder what party some of you think you have been in all these years.
Exactly.
Because it's not the one that I've been fighting within, and against, frankly, my entire career. I mean, as frustrated as I am with Trump, and I get as frustrated with this persona as much as anybody on the right does. But the reality is Ron DeSantis is never governor without Trump. J.D. Vance, no one knows what J.D. Vance, just an author of a book turned into a movie, which is a pretty hella accomplishment, but he's not a senator without Trump. He's not maybe the next vice president of the United States without Donald Trump. For all of his faults and disappointments, I can't think of a single gain that we have made on the right in the last decade that doesn't trace its origins back to Trump. You guys need to understand that this wasn't a great place before Trump. You guys are starting to sound from the right like the neocons, the Crystal crowd felt when they just owned up to the fact they were liberals all along and went to the Democrats because of Trump. You don't recognize Trump is the figure people turn to because they are frustrated with the system. All right? Trump is not holding back this wave of true blue conservatives who have just been sitting there this entire time, and they're being overrun by MAGA. certainly got in the way of Ron DeSantis becoming president, but that's about it. That's the list, y'all. That's the list. All right? Everything else, that every other piece of progress that has been made on the right in the last decade has its origins in Trump. Everything. Guys, name anything we've done on the right that we cannot say has some origins in the ascendancy to Trump. I can't think of one thing where we've made progress on the right anywhere. What is it? There you go. Nothing. So
I'm high on the red wave over here, Steve. I can't even answer.
If you're one of those, you guys are all grifters now and blah, blah, blah. If that's you, cool. You know, here's what I do. I tell you what I think, and I hope an audience wants to hear it. If they do, I get to keep doing this. If they don't, I don't. Yeah. That's really that is the limits of my entire business proposal. Just to say what I think in the most compelling, entertaining way that I can, and then hope that enough people want to hear it so I can keep doing it. And then if they don't, I can't. I don't have any other grand plan other than that. That's my entire MO, regardless if Mitt Romney's running, George W. Bush is running, John McCain's running, Donald Trump is, Ron DeSantis is, or your mom is. That's my plan in every single cycle, every single time. Okay? So you can't, if you want some like really ideologically driven party, you need to show that to people. You cannot ask people, hey, desert the guy that at least half the time gives you 100% of his attention for nothing. To go where? To go do what? To be represented by whom? All right? I mean, I don't know what party you guys thought this was.
That being said, Steve, you did check an extra bag on the way home that's full of all that grift cash, right? Y'all will get your cuts, I promise. Okay.
It'll be a good Christmas in the Erzen household.
Just want to be clear.
By the way, Orange Bird, that's code. You know what it's code for. Orange Bird says hello. Yes.
Let's move on. Joel CSA says, looking foolishly ahead, Trump wins in November, GOP takes the Senate, Cruz wins re-election, him and DeSantis gets nominations for the Supreme Court so that Thomas and Alito can retire in peace. Don't know what this could mean for now, but it sounds pretty awesome.
Yeah. I don't think that stuff is, I'm going to buy. I don't think that's zero. I wouldn't bet those things, but I don't think any of that is nuts. I could buy that happening. Especially on the Cruz side, I could absolutely buy that happening. I mean, I tried to get Ted in 2016 to tell Trump he wants to be on the Supreme Court then, but he still had eyes on the presidency, and I know that he does. And I think he'd make a great president, but his lane is really clogged right now. I also think he'd make an incredible Supreme Court justice. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility at all. I'll buy it.
I will buy, largely because I know Steve for the overtime is going to discuss long-term presidential politics, and my head may explode. And so I'm buying on this issue because this kind of thinking the personnel of this entire administration and all of Trump's appointings has to. There's nothing more important for Donald Trump than having better personnel. There's other things that might be equal with it. I'm quite sure are equal. But nothing's more important than having far better personnel. So this, amen. And that's, people are going to have, men like that are going to have to, like, God and country. Yeah, maybe I would prefer to be president, but this is the task for me. I've been asked. We need to do this. We need to have people thinking like that. So I will buy.
I mean, could you imagine Ted Cruz succeeding Clarence Thomas? That would be incredible. That would be absolutely incredible.
Next, we go to Dacian Memes for Unenlarged Spleens, submitting a new VeggieTales theme song. If you like to twerk with tomatoes, if a squash can turn you on, if you're spuds with tranny potatoes, then you may be too far gone. Have we got millstones for you?
Oh, my God.
Did you hear Matt Walsh's rebuttal to Phil Vischer, Sky Jathani, and some rando pastor talking about, am I racist? They were all like...
I did hear him refer to Phil as the VeggieTales guy, though. I heard that. I heard him say that, but yeah.
Yeah, they were discussing this movie like it was just beneath them, and then they all basically said, yeah, we haven't watched it.
Gosh. One of the most triggered I've ever been on this show is when I found out we lost Phil Vischer, the VeggieTales guy, to the spirit of the age. That ranks up there with the night in the Democratic Convention when they started handing out constitutions and the Declaration of Independence, and I just walked off the set when Aaron was gone, and I couldn't handle it. And poor Todd is trying to produce the radio show to 100 stations around the country in the middle of the night. And I just got so triggered, I walked away, and Todd had this look on his face that Tim Walz had on his face last night. All right. You want to see Todd Erzin nervous and on his heels. That night did it, man. That night did it. And then when we found out that Phil Vischer was lost, I got to be honest, I have avoided really following any of Vischer ever since because it just triggers me. I mean, how many great memories I have of that as a dad.
He's gone.
Yeah, gone. Completely gone. Yeah. Like if I were a Catholic arguing you can lose your salvation to an evangelical, I would use Phil Vischer as an example of my argument gone. That kind of gone, Aaron, is what we're talking about. That kind of gone. All right? Okay, and
I need a smoke.
I have so many great memories as a dad of sharing those movies with the kids, and so many great family movie nights, and going to the local Christian bookstore when for events when new ones came out, and I mean that just I feel like my own kid's childhood has been desecrated by what's become of him, and so when I see his name come up, I largely steer clear because it still really triggers me. I just can't. I'm as Jeff Sessions once said, it's hurtful.
Got any more thoughts, Todd?
I'm swept away. That was a sonnet.
Last one for this segment. Dennis McCullough says, Steve's shock about Dave Landau also being a Lions fan was the best moment of the night. I didn't see that.
I had no idea. Yeah, Dave Landau he mentioned he was a Lions fan. I'm like, are you serious? I had no idea. That was very cool. Yeah. That was a heck of a performance on Monday night, too. Man, those uniforms were freaking smooth. Man, those uniforms were something else. And that blue helmet, absolutely. That is some Sports Bro Supremo. I'm trying to trigger Todd right now. But those jerseys were really cool. All right, we'll come back. More buy, sell, or hold in a moment. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show, brought to you by our friends over at Lumen. It's the world's first handheld metabolic coach. It's a device that measures your metabolism through your breath, and on the app right there it lets you know if you're burning fats or carbs. It gives you tailored guidance to improve your nutrition, your workout, sleep, even stress management. All you got to do is breathe into your Lumen first thing in the morning. You'll know what's going on with your metabolism, whether you're burning mostly fats or carbs, and then they'll even at Lumen personalize a nutrition plan for that day based on those measurements. You can even breathe into it before and after workouts, so you know constantly what's going on with your body metabolically in real time, because your metabolism is your body's engine. It's how your body turns the food you eat into fuel that keeps you going. And Lumen will give you recommendations to improve your metabolic health based on your data as well. All right. So if you want to take the next step in improving your health, go to lumen.me/Steve. LUMEN.me. Lumen.me/Steve to get 15% off your Lumen. That's lumen.me/Steve to get 15% off. Lumen.me/Steve. All right, let's get back to some buy, sell, or hold, Aaron.
Bobby Angelo is next, who says, when World War III happens, after all the nuclear fallout and we're out of ammo, forced to use older, more elegant weapons, Todd will then see the importance of the lightsaber bros practicing their skills on his lawn. Only now at the end do you understand.
I love that last line, too. Great Star Wars reference. I like that. I thought that was sufficiently snotty. I will buy. I liked it.
That's a hard sell.
Next, we go to Tiny Johnny. The worst punishment God gives to people is letting them feel the full impact of their sinful choices, which is why for the U.S., he's barely had to lift his finger to deal out punishment.
I'll buy. I'm not sure I precisely agree with it, but I think there's more truth to it than people realize. You know, one of my old radio mentors, the late, great Jan Michelson, used to say fondly, God's law is often self-enforcing, or the natural law is often self-enforcing. And I think that this submission kind of touches on that theme. And that's really what the wages of sin is death means. It is what you have earned. Okay, the laws of sowing and reaping are undefeated, as I like to say. So you sowed with your actions. This is the seed that you sowed, and now this is the harvest that the crop you will harvest based on that seed. And if it's bad seed, it'll be a bad harvest, and that's what the wages of sin means. So I think this kind of gets to that generally. So I'll buy.
Yeah, I will absolutely buy, and this goes right along with what I lecture about on comfort all the time. I remember being on a run as a much younger man, and whatever I was reading in philosophy or theology at the time, I had me contemplating the things of hell. And Scripture is replete with how you no matter how bad the circumstances here on earth are, heaven can conquer all of it. So hell can't be just the trappings. It has to be something else. And I for whatever I remember crystallizing in my head, it's where you're talking. It's the realization that it wasn't thrust upon us, but we chose it, and having to immerse yourself in that knowledge for all eternity, without having coming to the rescue. I mean, I remember where I was running. I remember almost stopping. It was just like it was a moment. So you are onto something, my friend.
Next, we go to JJ Berend 44, who says no matter how the election goes, Todd and Aaron should require Steve to return to the studio to avoid a Jeffrey Toobin incident.
God. Oh, gosh. Wow. Aaron, how in the world did that make it through your screening process?
It's pretty self-evident, isn't it?
I think you guys are safe.
There's nothing. I've been down to your basement. There's really nothing behind you that could take you by surprise.
Oh.
In the room.
Let's just move on.
In the room.
Yeah, let's just move.
There's no doors or anything.
Yeah, I got it. I got it.
Pig in the Void says. Pig in the Void says, Marcus Allen, the FBI whistleblower, is now the leading contender for Man of the Year. So Marcus Allen versus Harrison Butker. Marcus Allen takes Man of the Year.
Yeah, that's not an insult against Butker, but yeah, I would absolutely say so.
Yeah.
Okay. I've actually been wrestling with this privately. Because it should be the case that the answer is yes. It should be. But because of what I said earlier about these, like, I just heard about this Marcus Allen case, Aaron, last week when you played that clip. And I do this for a living. I knew nothing about it. Nothing. Never heard. The last time I heard the name Marcus Allen, dude was helping the Raiders win Super Bowls. Or you know, he was getting handoffs from Joe Montana for your Chiefs. I did not know about that story. And substantively, Marcus Allen has absolutely suffered more and endured more significantly than Harrison Butker has. That is not in dispute. I do think what's in dispute, though, is that because this is where life happens now. Harrison Butker is way more known here than Marcus Allen is. And I don't think that, even though the risks are not the same, obviously, but I also think in this era of branding and social media driving everything and perceptions of you, particularly if you're a public figure in that realm, risking that, as Harrison Butker did, I don't think we should undersell that either. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely.
Because of the era we're in? Okay.
I agree. The pushback I would have, and I guess striking the balance is, and I didn't think the time was when you said it. Do I think that's where life happens is? It actually has to happen there for my job and to do it well. But I'm not as fatalistic. It's absolutely a choice, and a lazy and vapid and bad one that so much of life happens there. I don't think it's just like a lateral move that we have no control over, and this is just kind of the fates taking us over. So, but overall, though, you aren't wrong.
Yeah, I see it as, in this, again, I want to be careful not to diminish the importance of what Harrison Butker has done through his just unrelenting...
And continues to do by not giving in.
Yeah, by his just strong stand in favor of reality. I don't want to diminish that at all. Marcus Allen risked everything, and it cost him. He took action, and it cost him. So that's why it's close, I agree, in terms of magnitude of audience about who this will reach. But in terms of taking actions and facing the consequences and being targeted, hurt, and paying the price for what's right, Marcus Allen, I think, gets the edge. All right, ready?
Can I add one thing to the Harrison? Can I add one quick thing to the Harrison Butker thing? Is right after that went down, I had lunch with Rick Santorum, and Rick Santorum knows Harrison Butker very well. They're buddies, and Santorum told me at that time, he said, "Let me tell you something. That guy," he goes, "I've had to actually talk him out of doing some fights, getting in some fights. I mean, he's on fire right now." He's like, he is on fire for the Lord right now. I've had to talk him down from stuff like, hey, man, we need your voice. So keep in mind, pick your battles wisely. You're not a politician. You are on a football team. Every time you bring something up, you're going to bring the whole team into it. So his instincts are actually to seek out these conflicts and engage. I just thought our audience should know that.
It's refreshing. All right, next we go to Dominic, who says the caption this posts are the most worn out attempts at comedy on social media. It's time to retire it.
I have to sell because I just put up a caption this post.
Yeah, this seemed personal.
Today. Yeah, I'm going to have to sell lest my hypocrisy be exposed. My grifting hypocrisy yet again. I will sell.
Just bring home the bag. Coattails.
You got it.
What is it?
Orange Bird says hello. Yes.
It wasn't it. Second Hesitations 14 that says there is comedy and a multitude of counsel. So every now and then you get a good response. Next, we go to Ryan, the Christo-fascist, who has this very controversial take. Jesus was not talking about illegal aliens raping children in Nantucket when he referenced the least of these.
What do I don't even know what to say to that.
See,
I mean, for those of you that didn't watch the debate last night, this is what Tim Walz tried to do this last night.
This is all I'm saying.
This post is addressing.
There were opportunities last night that were missed. Case in point.
That's what a phenomenal submission that is. Phenomenal. This has been pretty strong. This has been a strong. By the way, guys, the cat audience in the cat sector of this audience is out. All right, is in my inbox right now. They are kicking tires and lighting fires. And I got to tell you guys, it is multi-gender. It is men and women. They are here on behalf of America's cats.
How many children
do they have? It's in my inbox right now. Nice. Very nice.
Next. All right. This one is from the Avid Creative, who comes not to troll Todd, but I think to extol him. The Avid Creative says, polling these days is much like sports broism. It was useful, but now it's just a distraction from the things that should matter more to us.
See, I will buy this take.
I do
100%. Yeah, I because the amount, like I keep telling you guys, meaning you guys, the audience, the amount of traffic, it's on both sides. I think it was Daniel who told me a month ago, the first day that Nate Silver had in his model that Trump took the lead, was the most read piece of content that we at The Blaze had published that entire week. And we'll go back to the conversation I've told you all before that I had back in last May, or May of 23, with a very, very well-known DC political writer from a very renowned corporate media outlet who flat out told me to my face, they have the least trust in their polling they've ever had. Even if they tried to get it right, it's harder to do it accurately than it ever was before. And even though it's the most expensive content they produce, it gets the most energy from and clicks and responses than anything else they do. And so that's why they keep doing it. The reduction, we're having these like existential cosmic debates, and people are like, what's Nate Silver's latest Pennsylvania polling average? Yeah, that take is exactly correct.
I think even a decade ago, I don't know if this is necessarily an accurate take, but I think a decade ago, you could have made the argument that an interest in a masculine-driven meritocracy like football, even though at times it could be taken to extremes, was a net benefit or a net good thing, because it is still a meritocracy. It's one of the only bastions of meritocracy left in our culture. Now, I don't think it's up for question. The vast majority of sports bros are just go team. What does that sound like? It just sounds like political go team. We're not really having arguments here. It's just go team.
We're winning, guys. We're winning.
Correct.
We're winning. They're
Yeah.
not even playing a game.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
This is not opinion. This is science, and nothing gives me greater pleasure than you guys trickling in over the years. Todd, I think you were right about instant replay. Todd, this sports bro thing, I think you're onto something. Yes. Nothing about being a sports bro, nothing makes you either smarter or more ethical. It's impossible. Both of those things will decline if you are a sports bro. And thus, by the transitive property, you have accurately done the math there. That nothing about the modern polling world, if it's akin to sports bro, will make you smarter or more ethical. Nailed it. Proud of you.
All right. Before we wrap it up, let's make sure we remind everybody about our friends at First Liberty. And they are asking for your help in enlisting in the fight against what the left wants to do to, quote, reform the courts, which basically means to take one branch of the government and just forever desecrate it so it's of no use to anybody except them and their schemes. And our friends at First Liberty have been winning battles in the courts for many, many years. I know Kelly Shackelford and that team down there, they are absolutely cash money. My man Ted Cruz, my old boss Ted Cruz, comes out of this camp as well before he got into legislative office. All right, so the future of the court, preserving an independent judiciary, is literally in our hands right now. If you want to lend your name and partner with our friends at First Liberty, you can take that action by joining them today and the over 1 million patriots that they are lining up to have their voices heard in defense of what the courts have done, which is provide some sanity against the lawfare against Trump, overturn Roe versus Wade, kneecap the administrative state by overturning the Chevron doctrine. See, that's what the left doesn't want. That's why they're trying to end the courts. Now, it's our job to defend our constitutional way of life. So go to supremecoup.com, C-O-U-P, supremecoup.com/Steve. That's supremecoup.com/Steve to learn how you can help stop the radical left's takeover of the court. supremecoup.com/Steve.
One more quick one and then a tease before we get out of here. Happy Dad says Kamala will step in and negotiate with the union for a slightly lower but still grossly large wage increase and claim victory.
I think all scenarios are on the table, including this one. And it won't be Kamala negotiating it because she's incapable. They'll just say she did. I think that this is a possible outcome of this. I'll buy.
Yep, it is.
All right. I don't think we have time, maybe, to open up this can of worms. So I want to get your answer to this one in the overtime. Rodney Boo Bo says, we should be a big fan of automation for the ports right now. I think that this opens up a can of worms. That would be an interesting conversation, but I think we should save that for the overtime.
Okay. And I think we should also discuss in the overtime what last night's vice presidential debate
I forgot we were doing that. Sorry about that.
That's all right. What last night's vice presidential debate did or did not do about the future as we head into future cycles on both sides of the aisle. I think we should spend at least a few minutes discussing that.
Well, I'll leave time open because that conversation makes me want to hurt myself, so I'll just abstain.
And I think I speak for America when we're in favor of content that makes Todd want to hurt himself. I think I speak for America on that. All right. I know I speak for my man Connor. I know I speak for my man Connor Stallion's American folk hero when I say that. I know that. All right. All right. We're going to stick around and do the overtime. More to come for the rest of you from noon to 2 tomorrow right here on Blaze TV. Until then, Romans 8:28.